digestive system and the microbiome needs to be in like a healthy, balanced state. Otherwise, it affects not just the lymphatic system, but every body system, which is why there's such a kind of blowing up of research on this topic. All right, so what is very cool about the gut microbiome is that the ancient traditions, thousands of years ago, were talking about the importance of the gut, right? So like with Ayurveda and Hippocrates, very generally referring to the importance of the gut in a few different ways. Interestingly though, like more early 1900s, Louis Kuhn and Henry Lindlar, who were both naturopaths, were more specifically starting to hint at how specifically the absorption of toxicants via the wall of the intestine was a major driver of most inflammatory diseases. And we'll get into technically what research is kind of confirming that is and why that is actually so relevant for so many illnesses. So the microbiome is trending. I do joke with clients every week, like they might be coming in with acne or anxiety or PCOS. I go, if you just type your condition in the word microbiome or leaky gut and PubMed, you will get a laundry list of research. Like, again, because pretty much everything comes back to the gut microbiome in some way. So just do that. If you get a symptom or a condition, just type microbiome PubMed and you'll start to learn about the links, which is pretty cool. And just as a matter of definition, like what is the microbiome? The microbiome is referring not to like just bacteria, it's referring to all kinds of organisms. But microbiome is technically referring to the organisms and their genetic material. Because it's the genetic material of bacterial species which kind of instructs what they do in the body. And so you'll see different terms like microbiota, microbiome, just in research and articles, but it's just kind of the technical difference. So we're interested in the organisms, but also their genetics, which I'll refer back to when we talk about testing. But so there's approximately, to my knowledge of the research I read recently, 39 trillion bacteria in our gut, which slightly outnumbers the amount of human cells. We used to be told it was something like 10 to 1, like something quite extreme, but more recent research is saying it's not that much. But it's still hugely relevant, like that they're still slightly outnumbering human cells. So they are obviously very important to the point where we talk, it's fun and I think helpful to think about the microbiome in our gut almost like an organ. You will hear about it referred to as an organ of the body because of how important it is. So like similar to the kidneys, the heart, the liver, if we didn't have the microbiome, we would die and we wouldn't function. But some technical scientists in the field kind of object to calling it an organ because it's not made up of human tissue. It's all this dynamic network of microbes. But as we'll get into, because it has so many roles and functions that affect pretty much every organ and other system of the body, I think it's helpful to think of it like an organ, and therefore we should take proper care of it and know how to take care of it. And what can happen if we don't. But the genes do outnumber human genes by 100 to 1. So just to drive home like how important it is to take care of these microbes. Cool. So just getting into these roles, right? So like we'll get into tonight, specifically the microbiome is essential for modulating the immune system. So 70% of the immune system is said to be in the gut, residing in what's called gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So in clinical practice, I have a lot of people coming to me with frequent infections of all kinds or allergies, and they're taking zinc and vitamin C and all these things for our immune system, but they're still sick, and that's when we just know we've got to go look at the gut. Okay, then those things will actually work and be absorbed. The gut microbiome is so important for modulation of our immune critical, obviously, for babies and children growing up, for modulating their immune system. The microbiome does have a role in synthesizing some nutrients, like B vitamins, vitamin K, for actually absorbing minerals, again, so people can be taking supplements, but they might not be using them that well if there's quite a deep disturbance in there. Huge role with the brain and mental health. So this is where like the gut-brain axis comes into play. So the gut can actually make neurotransmitters. So very famously, serotonin as a neurochemical, which is pretty well known for mood, actually has a very strong influence on gut motility and movement. It actually makes compounds that we require to reduce neuroinflammation, and the gut bacteria have a role in regulating what we call our HPA axis, which produces cortisol, the stress hormone. And some of you may or may not be aware of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, cranial nerve, the brain directly communicates with our gut by something we call the enteric nervous system, and vice versa. So again, if people are coming in with kind of mental health symptoms and doing a lot of foundational things that don't seem to be helping, go straight to the gut and have a look what's going on there. And sleep is super important for the microbiome, but again, with this gut-brain axis, they're talking to each other. If there are disturbances in the microbiome, that can be affecting sleep directly as well. Obviously important for digestion. When we say the gut microbiome is essential for breaking down food, so to speak, it's specifically referring to being able to break down complex fibers. And that, as we'll get into, is really important specifically for keeping the lining of our gut wall strong, which is very important for keeping the lymph strong, because the lymph kind of exists behind that lining of the gut wall. But so we need an optimal microbiome to break down complex plant fibers. If it becomes very disturbed, people struggle to be able to break down those fibers and end up with pretty uncomfortable gut symptoms. And it's early research, but it is very important for, it appears that gut bacteria help actually break down and metabolize pharmaceuticals, for example. So some people may or may not handle drugs based on what's going on in their microbiome, which is super interesting. And specifically these compounds that are broken down, like fiber that's broken down, these have specific effects on regulating how we handle sugar. So this can come into, it's very important for insulin sensitivity and handling blood sugar properly. So this comes into like metabolic health and insulin sensitivity and things like that. So again, like this little picture here, if you Google gut, anything, any other organ or axis, there will be research on it, how the gut can affect the liver, the brain, the pancreas. It's kind of in this bi-directional communication with almost every system and organ, to my knowledge. So just quickly, I'm not going to give you all a huge lecture on the lymphatic system, but I was touching on it before, right? So it's up to 70% of the immune system is said to be in the gut, and is made up of this gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So the lymphatic system is this drainage kind of detox system. It's very important for clearing waste. But from the digestive health realm, it's critical for absorbing the dietary fats we consume, absorbing those through the lining of the gut wall, specifically the small intestine, and the fat-soluble vitamins. So with this picture here, that along the lining of the small intestine are these tiny little finger-like projections, these villi. And basically the lining of the small intestine and these villi, maintaining the health of those villi is crucial, because those villi are what absorb our vitamins and minerals and carbohydrates and fats into the blood capillary around that lacteal, but because the fatty acids cannot be taken up by those capillaries, they go through into the lacteal, into the lymphatic tissue. So, yeah, just keeping in mind, it's about 70% of the GOLT is within the small intestine. That small intestinal area is crucial to kind of maintaining integrity of. Otherwise, if they become damaged, things can kind of leak over and start to overwhelm that lymphatic system. Which I'll carry on with that in a sec, but just what is a healthy microbiome? Just in short, there's no one specific answer to that, because like most things, it's a really young evolving science. A lot of, in terms of what makes up a microbiome, it's like genetics, age, environment. Like traditional cultures have radically different looking microbiomes to more westernized. And however we do, based on research, we're getting an idea of what does matter, like what can reflect like a helpful versus a more kind of damaging microbiome. So there's three key areas, like what is a healthy microbiome, what are we aiming for? One of them is what we call high diversity and richness. So the richness just meaning we want, you know, a good number of species, and we also want an even spread of all the types of them. So we can actually test for that by a specific type of microbiome testing. But basically, the more diverse and rich the bacteria, the more of an anti-inflammatory effect we're going to have on the gut wall and the body. So that's one thing that does seem to matter across the board. And the other one is a dominance of bacteria that produce something. There's many types of short-chain fatty acids, but one of the main ones is called butyrate. And like we were touching on before, the main role of the gut microbiome is to digest fiber in terms of what foods it breaks down. And one of the most important things it does there is it makes this butyrate. And there's many different types of bacteria that do this in the gut. But it's so crucial, and we'll come back to this, because again, preventing that damage to the wall with those finger-like projections, which absorb fats and nutrients, and we want to keep that wall strong and not let things getting through and overwhelming the lymph. This is the key, making butyrate, so having like healthy butyrate producing bacteria, and knowing how to feed those, which we'll get into. And we want to balance out kind of diversity and richness and these butyrate producing bacteria with lower levels of these organisms which we'd say are pro-inflammatory. They're not necessarily like quote unquote bad, just having a tiny bit of that. It really just depends on if there's a significant amount of these in the gut coupled with low levels of this kind of beneficial butyrate bacteria we're talking about. But you know, so again, when we look at microbiome testing, someone may have low levels of, you know, this butyrate anti-inflammatory compound bacteria and quite relatively overwhelming amounts of these types of organisms. So that person's gut is going to be highly inflammatory and really affecting the integrity of that gut wall. Yeah, that's kind of what I was just saying. So to these three areas, this is kind of what we're looking at on a microbiome test. And like I was just saying, even in my training, like way back in the day, we were taught, you know, these bacteria are good and these are bad. But it's kind of more now about just looking at the whole ecosystem and looking at the balance of it. And if you're going to do microbiome testing, there's so many labs out there. At the end of the day, the only lab offering this whole kind of genetic sequencing of your whole microbiome is this company called Cobiome. They have two based in Australia, which is great for us. So yeah, just FYI, I'll just go straight to that style of testing. Yeah, so just a summary there. So with this more balanced microbiome of good diversity, good richness, a lot of these butyrate producers and low levels of the more pro-inflammatory, it said we're aiming for what's called eubiosis. What the term used to describe someone whose microbiomes have become quite imbalanced, so to speak, is dysbiosis. And so, you know, I'm very into like etymology, like breaking down like what does the word mean, where does it come from. The dysbiosis is a Greek word which, so we call it microbial imbalance, but the word really comes from referring to wrong living, like this a bad or ill way of living. So I think it's a nice thing to understand, because dysbiosis, you know, when people learn about dysbiosis being a cause of health issues, so to speak, people can get very honed in on kind of just looking at the bacteria, and the problem is the bacteria, so to speak. People can get into the perspective of, but it's important to realize that all these imbalances that happen in the gut are a symptom. You know, it's like cause and effect. This has happened for a reason, and so the symptoms of dysbiosis are many different things. There's many things to consider here. Deficiencies in certain vitamins and minerals. I'd say chronic stress and nervous system dysregulation is probably one of the top. Poor sleep quality, and kind of not getting the right light signals as well. So that's a very short list, but so many medications. So people are on long-term medications, you can't just wipe them off, but just trying to get them on a plan to, you know, like PPIs, for example. These meds were designed to keep people on for 2 months maximum. Met people on them for 10 years. So this is like serious depletion to the microbiome. And again, it's things the body did not evolve to expect to come in, and it does have quite intense effects on the microbiome. Toxicants, like in the air, the water supply, the Western diet, lack of movement, hypersanitization. Sorry, I'm excited. What was that? Hand sanitizers during COVID. Again, like that's going to destroy your immune system. Okay, like it's hypersanitization is a huge issue. So the point being, look, when we're in the short term, if people got digestive distress, we want to get them relief and as quickly as possible. But in the longer term, it's really just considering getting back to nature. To be honest, like cleaning up our products and really focusing on our sleep and hydrating and addressing deficiencies and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I meet clients where they're kind of nailing in many of the sections, but there's a few other sections for them they need to look at. So this dysbiosis, gut bacteria balance. When we're talking about gut dysbiosis, what we're predominantly talking about is what is going on in the colon, in the large intestine. Okay, so like 10 to 11. There are bacterial species in other parts of the gut, but they heavily predominate in the trillions in the large bowel. Okay? There is some in the small intestine, but there shouldn't be as much as the large, and that's important, and I'll explain why. So I was touching on this before. So when we talk about gut dysbiosis, this is predominantly generally speaking occurring in the large bowel. There's a very dysbiotic gut. Okay? And if it becomes dysbiotic, it can promote inflammation by how it's interacting with the gut found on the other side of the lining of that gut wall. Basically, if this dysbiosis goes on for, perpetuates for too long and is constantly being aggravated, that can start to lead to other issues in the gut. And I've been kind of referring to it a little bit, but if this dysbiosis is going on in the large gut, that can start to have quite a seriously damaging effect in the small intestine, right? So you've got the large intestine here, small intestine here. So just remembering, like with the digestive process when we eat food, right? Which obviously chew food, goes down the esophagus, hits the stomach with all the acid, we break it down, and then food enters the small intestine. Okay? And the small intestinal area, I was touching on it before, is so important because it is much thinner lining of gut wall than the large intestine, and the reason for that is because it is responsible for selectively letting vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, fats, and amino acids through. So it's a super important process. If that is compromised, the downstream effects are huge. They affect every other system and organ in the body. Yes, so dysbiosis, that inflammation there is going on long enough, it can start to go up and affect the small intestinal area, where most of the gut is. It's more delicate, that tissue, than the lining of the colon. If it goes on for long enough, what happens is that gut wall becomes too permeable. So it's not selective anymore, and things start getting through that lining of the gut wall into the bloodstream that shouldn't be getting through. Into the blood system and the lymphatic system, and the body essentially perceives that as foreign, and it's like, what is that? It shouldn't be in here. And in response to that, mounts a systemic inflammatory response. Yeah, so I mean, if you Google leaky gut, you can find many pictures of this kind of scenario, but that's kind of the process. You've got like a healthy gut, good metabolites, a healthy layer of mucus here. Basically, the lumen is like the inside of the gut wall, then it's got a mucus layer there, and then the epithelium is the cells lining the wall of the small intestine. But as, you know, certain bacteria overgrow in there that shouldn't be there, produce these compounds, the gut wall becomes too leaky and gets into the bloodstream. And that is, you can go on and technically explain it further than that, but that whole process is like kind of in a basic nutshell how the gut affects every other body system and organ. It is like a perpetual systemic inflammation due to things getting into the body that shouldn't be getting in there. So the surveillance system kind of goes crazy, the lymph gets super overloaded. Yeah, so it's a cool paper I found on that, called the gut lymph hypothesis, kind of basically embellishing what I was just saying. Things get into the gut wall that shouldn't be, to the mesenteric lymph glands, leads to chronic immune overactivation. The lymphatic vessels become dysfunctional and fibrotic, and therefore a lot of edema, a lot of congestion. Are you with me so far? Making sense? Cool. So, yes, so basically, right, with the large intestine, dysbiosis, bacterial imbalances, if that goes on long enough, then in the small intestinal wall, that can start to become very leaky. Things getting in through, getting inflamed. Something else that can happen in the small intestine, so dysbiosis is part 2. Not only can that gut wall become leaky, but like I was saying before, there should not be that many bacterial species in the small intestine. But due to a variety of factors, if bacteria do overgrow in that part of the gut that they shouldn't be in significant numbers, this leads to like the classic IBS symptoms people are complaining of, because there's fermentation of basically, like particularly when fibrous foods hit the small intestine, there should not be a lot of bacteria there. They should be getting fermented later down the track, but because of that overgrowth, these get fermented on heavily in the small bowel, and people get chronic bloating and reflux and pain and all this kind of stuff. And that the type of bacteria that overgrow and they're kind of seriously perpetuating worse than that leaky gut situation we're talking about. So you don't have to have SIBO to have a leaky gut, but if you do get SIBO, like that leaky gut is going to become quite severe typically. And these are the people who are told to just eat more fiber and you'll be fine, and they feel terrible. That's not always usually what's going on if dysbiosis persists. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, so at this point, the kind of typical recommendations start to backfire, and people don't feel anything, or they tend to feel worse. It's kind of a big red flag. Yeah, so that whole process, when things get into the bloodstream and the lymph that shouldn't be getting in the research you'll see that is a term called metabolic endotoxemia. So you go, what does endometriosis have to do with the gut? Like what's the inflammatory process, how it's linked with the gut? It's this endotoxemia. Like how is depression and anxiety linked with the gut? It's this endotoxemia process. So I just did a podcast with a company on that, if you wanted to go into more detail on that. It's a pretty cool topic. Yeah, so that's okay. So essentially, the irony, I like to say to a lot of my clients with like, where the hell do I start with this? Especially if you're in that category of like so sensitive and you know, eat fiber but I feel worse on fiber kind of situation. You do need to look into the gut and sort out the gut, but ironically the place to start with is the brain and the mind, because all of these imbalances in the gut, like we were saying before, are symptoms of, you know, quote unquote wrong living or imbalanced living, and it is hugely related to stress, basically. So if you do have chronic stress hormones being pumped out more frequently than we evolved to handle, our digestive secretions and how things move through our gut shut down. You know, like the stress response is designed to help us flee from danger, and the gut is not important in those scenarios. So when it senses that, it just shuts down. So you know, the menu is obviously huge. With you know, when clients ask, well, what should I do? It's like yoga, meditation, somatics, so much you can do. So whatever people are into, but just from a purely clinical perspective, particularly if this is quite new to people, or you want something to complement work you're already doing for mind-body practices, there is pretty good research and just honestly like clinical feedback on the efficacy of gut-directed hypnotherapy. I think when people are very overwhelmed with where to start, they just need something really structured, like tell me what to do and tell me in basic language how this is going to help my gut. And the gut-directed hypnotherapy programs, like Nerva is a popular one, are really good, just to get the ball rolling for them. They're an Australian company too, and really cost-effective as well. I was talking about the vagus nerve before. It's really focused on toning the vagus nerve, switching off that part of the brain that's just constantly sensing danger, and shutting down the gut, and shutting down that vagus nerve. That's where I would tell people to start. You know, yes, the gut work will come, but it won't be effective and potentially not even tolerated if this is quite intense. This nervous system dysregulation, and it directly also, in a few different ways, keeps the lining of that gut wall leaky and porous. So we really need to start here. Cut and within the nervous system, recommendations, ear is a huge priority on sleep hygiene. I'm pretty huge on this with my clients. Especially with where to start, just really educating them on how to get the proper light exposure in the morning. Because if the early light exposures in the morning is a signal to our brain to get the gut to start firing, and food's coming, get ready to move and break down food. Like, it sounds really basic, but some people are missing that. And it's like, you can go down a lot of rabbit holes with supplements and tests if you're not doing that. It's just basic stuff, and it's super important. And also trying to really get people to avoid all this junk light at night and just whack on some blue light blocking glasses. I'm a huge fan of. That app is very cool, My Circadian. It's free, and it just tells you, based on where you live, when you need to go outside and look at the sky. So again, people just have, oh cool, right, go outside for 2 minutes. And you know, some people have hectic jobs, and they literally just need to be, all right, go out. Basic stuff, but it's super important. And also, like, you know, vitamin D is crucial for the lining of that gut wall. And so, for example, that app tells you when your UVB exposure time is. So where I live at the moment, it's between 9:30 and 2 typically. So I'm like, all right, I'm only going to make vitamin D if I go out between that with a bare back or whatever. Do not skip breakfast, please. If people skip breakfast and feel amazing, cool. But like in the context of someone dealing with chronic gut issues and probably nervous system imbalance, I wouldn't advise that. Just try to time meals well. This is a really good place to get people to start looking at. So with feeding a healthy microbiome, we do want to give it kind of a diversity of plants, basically, especially the prebiotic variety. Just want to, so these are different types of prebiotics that specifically do feed our gut bacteria, particularly those ones that produce the butyrate. Mentioned foods are wonderful, and omega-3 is very important. And so this is a conundrum people fall into. A lot of people can't tolerate what they need to feed their microbiome. So they need to deal with some of those deeper issues, like in the small intestine, to be able to do this. Although, again, that's why I say start here, because a lot of people start here and then they seem to be fine. So they may not need to go too deep.
Sometimes it's just as late.
Pretty much. That's why it's like, look, just start here. See how you go. So they may need to address some deficiencies. But I do find, not everyone, but a lot of people, if they get the foundations in deficiencies and nervous system, then they're 90% done. But yes, that's how you feed the microbiome. This point here is just personally why, because the prebiotics feed the bacteria that make that anti-inflammatory stuff, that keep the gut wall strong. This is kind of the key reason why I'm in a camp of people that don't see the carnivore diet being a good long-term solution. It's like a huge debate in nutritionists. Because and I get a lot of clients stuck on it, because again, it's removing all the fermentable plants that are making them feel terrible. So it works as an elimination diet. It gets rid of all the things upsetting them, but it is depriving their body of the compounds that produce this anti-inflammatory compound that treat the deeper issue. And I might be totally wrong about that. Maybe we'll find out what carnivore diet's awesome, but at this point, that's just why I sit like, that's cool that's giving people relief, but I don't think in the long term that's going to be a good idea. Yes, just learning about the things that disrupt that, like if it's thermal medications, filtered water, cosmetics, and there's so many things, right? Like chemicals and products. So it's just kind of going through that, what's relevant for people. I would say, just generally speaking, like with where to start and stuff, because I know it's speaking about the nervous system and all that kind of thing. In terms of where to start with the gut, so to speak, I would say, generally speaking, one of the most important things to do is to try to make sure people are having optimal and regular bowel movement. So it'll be kind of my number one thing with the gut to make sure it is optimal, because of what can happen if people are reabsorbing toxins in the gut and overwhelming the lymph. It's like, that is a huge issue in general, like with all disease and illness, that there is a poor detoxification and poor clearance of things out of the body, like whether it's through the gut or through the lymph or through it's because our detoxification systems get overwhelmed. So, and anyone who's had chronic constipation before, I'm sure can attest to this, that it can really affect your mind, your mood, right? Because there are things sitting in the gut that should not be there, and it's inflaming the brain. So, and if people try to do hardcore detox kind of supplements or things when their bowels are not moving, it can feel a lot worse. So all of this helps with that. But beyond that, it's like obviously water, electrolytes, magnesium, walking, especially after meals. Nature, it sounds so obvious, but research is the burning. Let's go walk in the bush, like healthy microbiomes, time spent with animals. Having a pet actually is very good for the microbiome. And yeah, essentially, we've been touching on it a bit, but if people are doing some of those kind of foundations and they're still just not great, it is important to just go look at a few other things, like at an absolute minimum testing for nutrient deficiencies. Because if people have become super deficient in a vitamin or a mineral that is really important for healing that gut wall, the detox pathways, the diet is not going to be enough for them. So they are going to need to go through a stage of supplementation typically of some things And obviously you've got to rule out things that are perpetuating gut dysfunction, particularly this poor movement of things out of the gut. So hypothyroid is a classic one, something called Gilbert's syndrome, obviously many others. But yeah, essentially going to someone, just covering the bases of testing, make sure there's not anything too more deep underlying that needs to be addressed. And so if people are not doing well on fibre, so to speak, that's when these therapeutic diets can be helpful, low histamine, low FODMAP, gluten-free, whatever. Ideally do that. They're meant to be short-term interventions for symptom relief, just don't want people getting stuck on them. So ideally, you're seeing someone for that. And with testing, there's many different types of testing. To test for the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and the leaky gut, that's a different test to microbiome testing. So that can kind of overwhelm people a bit too. So that's where I'll just book in and see someone. You don't necessarily have to do all of that. I mean, the clinicians, myself, I'm like any locums, so I don't know how to prioritize that, just based on what's going on. Yeah, that's it. What slide is it? Oh, that's all right.
Just with the microbiome testing,
Yes.
when I did, we started first
We did
just
microbiome first.
treating kind of cyborg, but the test was really amazing when I did, because there was a very kind of bad bacteria there that we had to get rid of.
Your microbiome test was, I'd say, comes back about 10% of people. There's a very specific organism that came back
Yeah.
so high that I could bet $1 million you would have come positive for SIBO, so we didn't get to do that as well.
Yeah,
So you can get kind of gauge things.
but it was very cool. Yeah, I really, I recommend doing that test if there's issues with your gut that you're not able to fix and it's just ongoing. It was very cool to do that. I have a question. So with leaky gut,
Yes.
how long do you think someone that has had a leaky gut for that to evolve to an autoimmune, for example, Hashimoto's or anything like that? Is it years of leaky gut, or does it happen?
It's hard to say, like, because leaky, there's a lot of research kind of suggesting that a gut becoming quite leaky and permeable and triggering that inflammatory cascade is kind of was the straw on the camel's back of autoimmunity finally flaring.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to say because there's would be so many things leading up to that.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to have symptoms to have a really leaky gut too.
Yes.
You can just be there without symptoms for a bit. Yeah, hard to say.
Yeah. Because my clients that do have autoimmune conditions, some of them do have a leaky gut, right now, as they're coming for the massage, and some of them, have no symptoms, no issues. But then when I start investigating, at some point, there was something with the gut, like years ago, or
Yes, there's usually, I always meet clients and say, look, just thanks for the form and welcome to wake up, but like, what is your story? Like, give me a timeline, like, so to speak. And most of the time, people will kind of answer for themselves why this happened. Oh yeah, actually, my mum died, and then my dog died, and then I got gastro. It's like, boom, boom, boom. And then I was like, all right, and then they kind of connect the dots. Again, some people it is common for example, you say, well, I've been so healthy my whole life until this thing happened. But again, I would say most of the time, whatever this catalyst of an event was, like gastroenterology or a stressful event or something, that was very likely also the straw on the camel's back, but then there were likely other things going on in the background. Again with this like, okay, well, what was going on in the background? usually convolvulus far more things here. Very commonly. In this day and age, people are not aware of how much stress they're holding onto and things they haven't processed. And, so there was some physical event catalyst that, that was the thing, that there was so much going on in the background. I'm sure everyone can relate to that.
Questions? Can you repair a leaky gut? And is there a point where it's irreparable?
No,
And then what?
no, I've seen the sickest people repair it. And because the gut wall is always trying to repair itself. It's like the body really, it is self-healing. Like and especially during sleep, that is critical for healing the gut wall. So again, people have got, I'm an insomniac, and like that is the priority for me. So there are, it can happen pretty quickly in very well people. I guess it can depend like on, like some people, their nervous system dysregulation is so intense that they're such hypersensitive, people don't tolerate things very well. It might take them a while to really reset and rewire that nervous system, but that's absolutely reversible. And supplements can accelerate it. There's people still like to take things that know that it's not just something they can take to help, and they do speed the process along.
Is the placebo?
Yeah, potentially.
I'm taking these.
Totally.
I feel so good.
Yeah. I was gonna say, the supplements, they help in very specific ways. Like mainly because they're just healing the tissue together, reducing the inflammation. It's why people do a SIBO kind of to clear that, because that'll just make it worse. But and you can test for it specifically. It's not that expensive. Like microbiome testing is a bit more an investment, but if you just want to know if your gut wall is still quite leaky or not, like yes or no, it's like a $150 urine test. So people are doing treatments, like just check that's fine, and if it is, they can. Because a lot of people do walk around going, I've got a leaky gut. It's like maybe, but you can actually check. Because people do this with really chronic illness. They've got a story of I have this and I've got this. It's like you might want to objectively check that. Just imagine if you were telling yourself a story for years and you actually it was completely irrelevant. It's like.
Has it always been known that that nervous system dysregulation is so tightly connected to gut issues?
Yeah. I mean, the ancients didn't refer to it. To my knowledge. This is what I mean, it's like they were onto it, but this is all still in effect. But the research is pretty strong on that, which is very cool. Which is really why, the huge role, the importance of the vagus nerve. If people needs like a simple concept to hold onto to work with, it's like just talk about the vagus nerve. The enteric nervous system, so the gut, the nervous system in our gut that communicates via the vagus nerve. Some people do that nerve program. Whatever that was.
The app.
I've had people who, look, not everything works for everyone, but I've had people stuck on a very restricted diet and food anxiety, and that just let them out of it. And then we can carry on with the deeper treatment and get them off the elimination diets.
And what was the podcast?
This one, Understanding Metabolic Detox.
Wellness by Designs.
Designs for Health Australia. I think that's what it's called on Spotify, Wellness by Designs,
Things like endometriosis, PCOS, and the link with the gut, how much of it will actually change the people with like severe endo that need surgery or have like really, really severe abdominal pain? Is that something that can be assisted by going down this route, like quite significantly?
Actually, one of the last things I talked about on this podcast, he asked me like, what do you see a lot? And I'm like, I have endo. And in my practice, typically specifically like niched or specialized in, but I have a lot of women with endo coming in because they find out about the whole gut link, you know, okay, my gut help. And it does, like obviously the gut is not the only thing affecting endometriosis, adhesions and all these other things. But because endo is essentially being perpetuated by chronic systemic inflammation, if a woman with endo has this endotoxemia, where endotoxins, if these bacteria in the small intestine are getting through that gut wall into the bloodstream, this very specific inflammatory pathway gets triggered. We go into the podcast, it's called TLR4. It is the inflammatory pathway the body, that is inbuilt in the body to be switched on if bacterial fragments into the bloodstream. It's the exact same pathway which drives sepsis. So endotoxemia due to a leaky gut is like the low-grade, mild version of sepsis. Obviously not dying of organ failure, but it's the same pathway. So the inflammation, the pathway that gets triggered, the inflammation is quite intense. And so if you can calm that down, that endotoxemic systemic inflammatory load, it can really significantly calm the endo down.
And that's Crohn's.
Yeah, Crohn's is probably one of the most endotoxemic things. Because Crohn's is essentially, it's the small intestinal wall that can become quite easily leaky if things get in or whatever. That can happen in the large intestine, but the tissue there is a lot denser and a lot more layers. It's not very common for that to happen, but Crohn's is where that can happen. The degree of inflammation in that large bowel is so severe. Yeah. So with endotoxemia, there's a lot. It's like you go, oh, well, okay, what else can endotoxemia be linked to in terms of conditions like anxiety, depression, inflammatory bowel diseases, PCOS, difficulty losing weight, and high insulin, high blood sugar, it's all being perpetuated by this endotoxemia. Yeah. It's a cool podcast. Any more questions? Cool.
Just because we're talking about the nervous system, and we spoke about it today. He came from massage this morning. And then, the gut started, making those noises, and he's like, is that normal? It's like, yes, very much. So once the nervous system relaxes, the digestive system starts working better, and everything just starts working better. And that's why lymphatic drainage is such a good tool for assisting the gut as well. Of course, we also do the large intestine release, and we kind of massage everything in the gut area as well, just to get things moving. So it's an amazing tool. I was also telling him how some people just wanna, they go to the bathroom, they evacuate once a week, and then they come, to get the massage, just to get that moving, and then that's moving for 2 days, and then they just come back. And I was just telling him, so some people just don't want to look into the root cause of things, but that is changing, and that's why I made this course integrative, so we can really guide the clients into looking deeper into the symptoms that they have, and it's working actually. Like since I created this, it's been 3 years, and a lot of clients coming in with the interest of understanding things better. So yeah, great. I'm referring the clients, but they don't always book it in. When you refer them to see someone else, a doctor or naturopath.
Yeah, if anyone wants these slides, just let me know. Just email them through.
Oh yes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll send it to Mary.
Yeah, and then I'll send it to you guys.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. I was going to ask, but I was like,
I know it's a lot. I wasn't too.
That's good.
But
That's really
when I'm
good.
sitting in front of a client, I say, look, here's the deal, like, you eat food, well, actually, you think and feel, and if that's all a bit intense, everything's going to shut down. So, but we chew food, and then it's the esophagus and the stomach, all the acid, and then we hit the small intestine, and we need to absorb it. That needs to be so clean, and well, so that's, if someone's got really chronic issues, like, we just need to look into the small intestine very first, and just suss that out. And look, I've had some really sick people, and we checked all that, and it was clear. And I'm like, wow, it's a huge range compared to here. And yes, we checked the large bowel, the microbiome. Cool, there's stuff going on there, but yeah, it's that small bowel which typically causes those quite intense IBS symptoms, but sometimes there's nothing in there. So it's a huge brain to gut thing. And some
How-
people, it's huge.
yeah.
Their overgrowth is like through the roof. It's like, okay, they've done all of the nervous system work in the world, but they really need to treat that. Things sitting in the gut. Really, it can go either way. Yeah.
How do your clients react? I mean, because you're a naturopath, they probably just want to get herbs and supplements. And how do they react when it's kind of okay here, and it's pretty much just psychological, and they accept that, or they're like, oh my god, what is he on about?
It's a mixed bag. I think, yeah, the clients we were experiencing was like, oh, awesome. Feels a bit more kind of health obsessed, kind of in that world already. Yeah, some people are kind of shocked. Just, yeah, they want to get a test result and find a thing. That's
Yeah.
the thing. But yeah, it's very mixed bag.
Yeah.
Some are quite shocked.
Yeah.
And I've had similar stories from they'll get a scope with this bit of chronic pain in their chest or something, and they get all the scopes and everything's clear. They're like, what's up with that? And I'm very careful to say to people, when we say it's psychological, it's like, we don't mean it's not real. We just mean that, because that's what the amount of stories I heard of people going, my doctor just said it's all in my head. And I'm like, and I say to them, look, they're not wrong, they've just framed it terribly.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm like, well, you have taken that to mean it's not real. And then, explain the brain vagus nerve, you're in a constant state of perceiving danger and threat, and, gotcha, so, okay, seems to be framed. Or at least be told that here's what you can do about it. Not like, yeah,
It's
fuck
a-
off. Yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, because some people really want to find something.
And
With
fair enough,
their physical bodies. Like,
Yeah, and fair enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes if people do, and that's cool too. If we do, and look, if you do enough testing, you will find that thing, and that's fine. Like, that can be a motivator too. How cool then people motivated to do a treatment and do a lifestyle change, and
Yeah, just mixed bag. I had a client last week who had been told after years and years from her doctors that it was all in her head until she started working with a naturopath who then asked a series of questions, and she was like, I know exactly when it happened. And then when they went a little bit deeper, then exactly that, there was some food poisoning, but then there was also the mother passing away.
Yeah.
She lost her job, all of these things, and the doctor was just like, no, it's all in your head, which
Yeah.
was pretty upsetting for her.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a terrible way to frame it.
Yeah.
To all kind of parental traumas as well.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you said about if you're not stimulating the vagus nerve, if you're not balancing the circadian rhythm and doing all these things, I've been to naturopaths that have just put me on a range of supplements and not talked about any of those things, but obviously doing my own research, I know that those things are really important and
Yeah.
living a low tox life, but
Yeah.
will those things be healed from supplements on their own, or is it obviously you have to do these things, but at what point do supplements kind of take you? Does that make
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, because these days I'm pretty big on, because when I first meet people, I give them supplements because but I always say, but you know, without trying to, maybe I do overwhelm people. But FYI, these are some deeper things of, you know, circadian, whatever. But I always throw people on some supplements because I'd say the average person is so depleted, let's say, of minerals and vitamins that it's chewed up by all that chronic stress that they need to just have energy and have a balanced mood. Some people I do give them supplements, educate them on a few things. They just say straight up to me, I didn't do any of that. But I feel amazing. I'm like, cool, carry on. You know, sometimes some people are conscious of it. They're like, look, I'm aware that I've got some habits driving this. I don't have time or mental space to deal with that. I'm honestly just here to like, can you just wax something over it? I've had people say that. I'm like, cool, that's fine. So they can work without the lifestyle. I think it's over. I think at a point, as long as people acknowledge, cool, it's just a mandate though, and that's fine. As long as it works. It's almost like people are supplementing things so that their nervous system can just balance out a bit from all the things that are stressing it. That's my theory anyway. If that answers the question. You know, my training. I mean, like any degree or course, you've got to learn the foundations, so you know how to work with them and whatever. But and so the foundations were heavily on prescribing herbal medicine, supplements, and obviously we're taught about lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, very early on in my clinical practice, I was definitely more hyper-focused on treatment, not enough on lifestyle, because that was my training.
So do they talk much about like mindfulness?
Yeah, but it's, you know, the exams and the studies like pharmacology, herbal pharmacology, like you know, and that's, I get it, like there's a really deep science to that you've got to learn and understand. And yeah, you have people who do fine just with the protocol and will talk to them much about diet or lifestyle, but others don't, you know. But yeah, it's just important for me these days to front it with that kind of stuff because otherwise people just get stuck on so many supplements and, you know, without, they genuinely don't know that like getting up earlier can help them. It's just a simple little change. You know? Yeah, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you can't override though, that's not my approach, but some people just like this.
I feel like for some people it's just too simple to say that, and they're almost like they don't believe it. So
Simple
like
to say
no
what?
need to be on like something.
Oh,
to
for
fix
sure,
it.
for sure. I'd especially say the circadian rhythm lighting stuff.
Yeah.
When I can see it, but I'm just getting into it, I see people being like,
Yeah. So true.
they're like, really?
Yeah.
And I always say, I know it sounds simple, but and that's where some people need to be like, here's the research. But yeah, the paradox of all this is like, it's almost like it's the paradox of particularly chronic illness is it's like the sicker you get, it's like you really have to master the basics. It's not because you haven't found the right protocol. But yeah, look, supplements and herbal medicine, I use a lot with people, and they're great, you know, it's just the synergy of it all. Yeah. But yeah, like I think I alluded in that podcast when they're like, what do you give people, what do you do first? I'm like, well, I do a lot of gut treatment, I do a lot of nervous system treatment. I don't know a gut thing or two, but it's not to begin with. It's people are so deficient in like protein. Before even getting to vitamins and minerals, just that people don't even have food.
Of the
in
wrong foods.
general. Yeah, because minerals and vitamins are chewed up by stress and leaky guts, it's like people are just so depleted. So supplements do play a role. To the beginning.
And then you also have the people that buy the cheap ones.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Good cheap.
And I was just reading something yesterday about there's a brand called Now. It's an orange
Oh,
bio
yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
And, 80% of products were tested and didn't have any of the active constituents. So this is kind of why Australian supplements are typically more expensive, but it's because they're treated like pharmaceuticals, like as in the government make the companies go through third-party quantification testing. Whereas in America, supplements are treated as food items. So you just don't know what you're getting. I'm sure there are companies there that will say, look, we did third-party test and whatever, but in Australia, that's like an across-the-board rule. And, yeah, but in Australian products, yeah, there are kind of different types of quality in terms of ingredients. Yes, I've had some people come to me with buckets and stuff. I'm like, honestly, Jonathan.
What's your take on flaxseed oil?
Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really think that has made a huge difference
Oh, cool,
for
yeah.
me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really.
I mean, they talk about it in like the Quran. It's
Like,
like,
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, see,
way back.
Cures everything.
No,
Stem
it
cells.
does. Yeah, no,
70% of healing.
yeah.
Yeah, it goes so far back.
Yeah. I took during COVID. It was
Yeah, that's
amazing.
it.
Yeah, out of stock.
Yeah.
Same, I give it to my son too. Like,
Growing up,
yeah.
it's such a thing for.
That's what Hashimoto's, I think,
Yeah.
thyroid, insulin sensitivity, infections.
Everything is
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, bacterial, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Do you
can
take
this
liquid?
all- Sorry.
Yeah.
How can this all be like tied into related to the skin as well?
Into
Skin.
our skin, yeah.
Like how's it all tied up with lymphatic drainage, gut health, the whole thing?
Yeah, it's complex, but this simple way I put it is like, again, just if you've got kind of the dysbiosis triggering some mild inflammation in the body, or that small intestinal leaky gut situation triggering a lot of inflammatory chemicals, basically. So those inflammatory chemical messages can then start to cause like skin cell division disruption and inflammation, like a lot of histamine release, so there's kind of
So it
reddish.
all kind of starts in the gut and then skin
Yeah.
conditions begin.
Yeah. I kind of bang on quite a bit on my account about something called histamine intolerance.
Mm.
It's not allergy, it's just sort of having trouble getting rid of histamine in the body.
Yeah. I get rosacea depending on what I eat with histamine. I haven't had it for ages, since I started seeing this. But it's true. But in the past, like, yeah, anything fermented, next day, like a little bit of rosacea.
Yeah, that's histamine.
It was just histamine.
So if anything like redness or red itchy, it's kind of like just a classic inflammatory kind of overload, with a lot of histamine kind of dilating blood vessels.
Because like rosacea would be treated as a, like say the way we treat it, dermatication. So the way we treat rosacea, the way they teach us to treat it is by like, for example, laser treatments or specific like product or anything like that. But I never believed in that. I don't know, I just didn't like, yeah, you can kind of eliminate that broken capillary on the face, especially on the nose, or you actually get the erythema or rosacea on the cheeks. They straight away just send it to, or just do laser or do flushing.
Yeah.
But I never believed in that. I always thought it comes more from the gut, like what you're eating.
Yeah, definitely. They'll come back.
Because it comes
Yeah,
back.
it comes
Trying to convince people like that these days is, before it was a bit hard, I feel like now it's easier because people are on this health journey.
Yeah, rosacea in particular, there's quite a lot of strong people in the research. It's the rosacea SIBO link is not strong. Yeah, it's heavily related to histamine. Yeah, I had like when I was young, like pretty severe acne, so I get the desperation. Just so it's like a whack, like
Just fix me. Yeah.
Yeah. Skin takes time as well. I say to clients, look, skin is a bit longer. Don't expect in a month for it to be fully cured, but
Yeah.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I had like severe acne growing up. I had,
Yeah.
and then I had stage 4 acne, and then I had to go on Roaccutane.
Yeah.
So that was everything, too much, like I was producing way too much oil.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Then that's got to do with hormones as well. The
Mhm.
acne.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Makes women's health a bit more complicated than men.
Everything else.
Just a little bit.
Where does the flatline? Women get to do with the, and that is so delicate. The menstrual cycle, that becomes imbalanced. And again, like with that kind of idea of like most, if not all, illnesses, diseases can be brought back in some way in terms of what causes it to like toxicity. So the body should be able to handle, you know, some environmental exposure and histamine, but things getting in their lymph system, but it's really the detox pathways become overburdened and things build up. And that is a core reason why women get hormonal imbalances. Oh, it's where you would start anyway, with making sure they're just getting rid of estrogen. You can actually test for that on a microbiome DNA test. You can test for if some man or a woman has a significant overgrowth of the type of bacteria that lead you to reabsorb estrogen into your bloodstream and not get rid of it. But I see it all the time. We've got pretty intense PMS, heavy periods, painful periods, and I've kind of got an idea that it's an issue of too much estrogen already, but then we see, oh, okay, it's actually caused by significant reabsorption of estrogen in their gut. And that has really specific treatment. So you can get nuance with the testing.
What else could be happening there besides that bacteria?
Like
For the body to be, having too much estrogen.
It essentially comes down to that. Or detoxification of it through the liver and the bowel. Yeah. You can reabsorb it through the liver as well.
Okay, yes.
Yes, so much illness and disease is due to poor clearance of heavy metals, hormones, microplastics, things aren't getting out. And that's a pretty core, across all natural medicine traditions, there's always a line about, oh, I've got to make sure detoxification is optimal. So lymphatics. The forgotten system. I had a lecturer back in the day, and I'll never forget, she said to me, before doing strong treatments on people, you need to kind of clear up their detox pathways, and you do that by prioritizing deficiencies and by working on their lymphatics. And then no one ever mentioned lymphatics ever again. But she's right, it's like, yeah, if that's super congested and you try to like bomb the gut with stuff, I see it all the time, people are terrible.
No, it's definitely the best way to start any treatment. If a client comes to me and they don't know what to look for and they're trying, to start their health journey, I always say lymphatics. Because they try to do all this detox for organs, but if the lymphatics are clogged up, like the organ is not going to detox anything. Where is it going to detox from? Because it's got to move. So it's definitely the best way to start.
And like fasting is pretty awesome as well, I will say. I mean, when I first meet people, and again, if their nervous system is seriously shot, I'm not going to tell them to fast. But once they're over that, cool, then experiment with fasting. It might be a bit too stressful on them to begin with, but fasting is like the most regenerative. Because again, if the gut wall's trying to heal itself all the time, if you get rid of everything, it gives it a break to just. And it doesn't have to be hardcore fasting.
30 days to start with.
Yeah. I think that's how much is that? It's like, actually listening to it. That's why, what's his name, maybe? Circadian Man? Sachin Panda. I like his stuff. I refer people to his work. It's a book called The Circadian Code. it's his style of fasting. It's not that extreme. He goes, oh, what does he call it? TRA. And it's just eating in a 10-hour window or a 12-hour window, right? Doesn't have to be, 4 to 6 hours of eating. You can still get pretty good benefits. Because that's how I find women in particular. I've got a lot of women who are eating in a 4 to 8 hour window. I'm like, look, I get why you're doing it, but just like go along with it. Eat for a bit longer. And, like you can still get the benefits, but just
Alright, you guys have any
anything
questions?
else? Our open book.
Very cool. Thank you.
Are you taking new clients?
Yeah, all the time.
Great.
Yeah.
Definitely have some clients in mind.
Cool. Yeah, happy to help.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
He did really help me a lot. When I had like my severe gut issues, I did see another naturopath. She was my client, and I thought like I'm gonna see her because she's a woman, and she's gonna understand me better. And I got worse with the treatment from her. And then I saw Steven, and I felt amazing very quickly. Just very different approaches. She ignored a few things that I thought was very important, like I have MTHFR. She said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It doesn't make any difference." There was a few things, and she put me on like a lot of fermented foods, which made me more bloated.
Yeah, so you're that person where like, here's what you do for microbiome, but there's a huge amount of people that actually makes it feel worse.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I was pregnant, like, and I was having more. I was like, okay, kefir, like tempeh. I was like, and it's just getting more and more. I'm like, maybe I should have more.
Yeah, that's the histamine crowd. They're like, I thought I'd try and do the right thing, so I bought and drank a whole bottle of kefir, and then
I was doing that. And then I was like, it's not. And then she put me on herbs, and I think I was just too sensitive, and I just had so much gas. And I'll be teaching a 10-hour class, and I'm like, my god, everyone's looking at you, like, how you let that out? And then the thing is, when you run to the bathroom, it doesn't come out. It's like, why? It was just there. And then you go back to the classroom, and there it is. And like, oh my god, and I looked pregnant, everyone's looking at me, oh my god. And I started wearing a compression belt, because I just looked pregnant. People started asking questions. It was like really bad. So yeah, I did get worse when I saw the woman, the naturopath woman. Then I saw him. I was like, straight away. He didn't put me in herbs because I was just too sensitive. Yeah.
Random question.
Yeah, go for it.
But I've seen a few different naturopaths now, and they have very different views on food. I've had
cool.
like multiple
I know
like
the food
books
conversation is a nightmare, honestly.
of food, and it's like completely contradicting the other one. And I'm like,
Yeah, what were they?
what freaking milk do I need to have?
Oh, right.
I know gums and everything, but they taste like shit, like the almond and the. So
Yeah.
I'm back on full cream milk. I'm back on full cream organic full cream milk, but I'm like, is
How do you
that
feel?
good?
Well,
But
then have it.
I'm also like, I'm having other, and like I'm working on other adjustive gut microbiome, getting all these like nervous system regulating supplements and things.
Yeah.
There was just one strain of something that doesn't support the anxiety in my body.
Okay.
And then I got put on low FODMAPs, but
Okay. Yeah,
Let's just
it's a
say.
minefield. Because like, if people have been on a huge journey of trying to figure it all out, eventually, because if people first come in and they're seriously debilitated on their it's like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably suggest something like a low FODMAP.
Yeah.
As long as it's clearly understood that that is a short-term intervention to symptom relief. And why, but it can calm stuff down. In the longer term, eventually it just becomes like, if you drink it and feel amazing, then you should be. And look, some people might disagree with me on that, like let's say gluten. But gluten causes leaky gut in everyone and it's full of right for safe. It's like, I get it. Like, if people want to avoid things strictly or generally for those other, like, general health prevention, cool. But if people are trying to navigate their way out of chronic food anxiety and restriction, and it's cool, just as long as you're feeling well, just go off that for now. The chronic stress around the food thing can help keep people stuck. But yeah, it kind of, yeah, it's a huge conversation, the food thing. What were the contradictions?
Go back to basics. I always
Yeah.
say, like, if they
Yeah.
ate it 1500 years ago, then you can eat it now.
Totally.
Like,
Yep.
and I feel like a lot of people put this, like, narrative around food.
Yeah.
So, especially as a woman, you know, we develop DNA, we develop all these pathways. Like, I was listening to a podcast with his MP, Dr. David Walker. He's like, anyways, he's like into the alternate natural medicine field, and he was saying how human beings were made up of like waves, like sound waves. So when you
Oh,
think
cool.
about it, we can actually alter our microbiome and the DNA just by thinking excessively about what milk to drink in the morning.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
It's
you're
like,
actually you are what you ingest. And when they talk about food, it's like you're not only ingesting food, you're ingesting information, and you know, and it becomes this cycle, and then your body's going to respond negatively to that. So just have I eat raw meat, I drink full cream milk,
Yep.
I have ghee, I have butter. Like it's a Mediterranean diet, and it's the best diet, it's the most proven. And I always say to people, if you want to heal, go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. That's why, like, I've respected people are well and have their reasons for
TikTok
never
is
eating
TikTok,
gluten
yeah.
ever again. It's like,
TikTok,
cool,
yeah.
do your thing. But like, it's generally, because if people are unwell, it's like the obsession around that
It is,
might be
it's-
holding. It's
that's
probably
the mind.
holding you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's unnecessary, like.
yeah, the only reason I do kind of, I think I said before, I will put people on some sort of elimination style diet. Just if it's the
Just
first time I've met
kickstart.
them, they've never heard of anything to do with gut or never taken care of their health. I feel like at the beginning of a health journey, I kind of ritualized food intervention and just help stabilize things and kind of get them thinking clearer to help them figure out how to move forward. But that's how I kind of see it. More like,
Because it's hard to take the culture out of people when they're eating. Up to a lot of people, it's culture. So
Oh, totally.
they won't
Yeah.
change their diet because
I know an Italian
That's my
person on a
culture.
low-histamine diet.
you
It's like tomato.
know why.
I don't know why.
They'd rather have the heartburn, you know.
Yeah.
And they'd rather take the Nexium to mask the heartburn and still have the wine.
And look, that's why I always say, even with food, will be involved, but like, look, if you do gut hypnotherapy and address deficiencies, you might find you're actually fine with the food after that. Maybe not, but a lot of people, yes. It's that NERVA, they kind of claim to fame as a study they did a while ago showing that people who did the NERVA program did better than the people on the low FODMAP diet. They didn't follow any diet, kind of proving the point, like, if you just get this happening, you don't have to worry too much about it. Doesn't work for everyone, but an overwhelming majority of people, it does seem to hugely accelerate their ability to get off all the food restriction. Yeah, I know it's a minefield though, the food stuff. If you're feeling good,
Just eat it, it makes you happy.
like but endometriosis is a good example of like, okay, there is a lot of clinical research and feedback of women that, you know, A1 dairy makes their periods super heavy. So at least switch it to A2, or you might need to get off completely. It can get nuanced and heavy. You take care of that and heal that gut wall. I do meet people, unfortunately, who are so healthy and doing everything and anything again, and they just cannot eat gluten. Don't know what it is. Maybe it's the gluten in Australia. Very different. It's the wheat overseas. Yeah, but at the end of the day, just go for anything you want.
No, I don't eat gluten. was just hard for me to lose weight. Like years ago, I stopped losing 9 years ago. But now I don't have it because now I'm like, I'm gonna get fat, you know what I mean? So I don't even know if it's gonna do anything. But the panic of getting fat, I might even get fat just thinking of that thing that has to go there, you know what I mean? So I just don't have it.
Well, a lot of the psychological
Is that
relationship
psychological?
with food,
Yeah.
which I work with a lot of people around.
Yes.
Yeah, right. It's huge. It's So again, it's the tricky thing about being a clinician. It's like
Yeah.
you meet people and you're like, where are they at? Like personally, they're understanding, and are they at the beginning, or I'm like, they need to follow like on my diet or whatever, like, or am I just not even gonna go with diet? You know, they don't need to be told anything. They know that's not the food is not the problem, really.
I find it's a readiness as well in people, and when you create a ritual, you give them something that's like, right, I'm doing something I'm in control, so psychologically, even getting up earlier, if I had to take a supplement as well at 5:30 a.m, if we do that, rather than just getting up early.
True,
Because it's
I
part of the,
like that.
The routine that they
yeah, like
create,
I'm doing something that's not just a
I'm getting up to take my supplement. It's like, sure, go with
I mean,
that.
like, getting up in control, right? So it's, so some people need to work differently.
Totally. I like that.
It's motivation and a sense of control.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to release, for ages, I've been making this elimination diet handout thing for this low histamine diet. Just because so many of the lists are overly restrictive and wrong, and I'm like, I just want my own one. But it says very clearly in that document, like, this is a therapeutic tool, it's short term, it's just to clear the slate, and this is, you know, I think that's why people get stuck on it.
Yeah, it helps. I did so in the beginning of that program that I was saying when I was really bloated, we did the low FODMAP.
That's,
I think within a few days, that's it, the bloating was gone. Like, it wasn't forever, but I think I followed the low FODMAP for 9 months. And it was amazing. And then I started introducing the foods back slowly. Yeah. So I think when you're really in that place where you're panicking, don't know what to do, and you're feeling really bad, definitely helps. Definitely helps.
yeah, so people, look, just follow that for a few weeks, calm it all down.
Calm it down, yeah.
That's all.
Alrighty. Anyone got any more questions or anything? Anyone want to say anything? Anyone want to share anything? No?
Oh, great.
Thank you for having us.
No worries,
Yeah, it's
that's
really
fun.
good. And congratulations.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hard work.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Let me see if that thing
Yeah, I'll
worked.
send that to you.